Today, we are talking about water and we're reviewing some of the properties of water that help make it useful to living things. So, we started out, and I just want to make sure I point out that this is in section 2.2 of your textbook. There's also a website available, a lesson available on our biology Google site. And that can help support some of the information we're talking about. But we discussed that water is a polar molecule. And so a lot of the answers are going to come back to the fact about water's structure and how it helps it achieve these functions. So when you take a look at a water molecule, all of the check marks represent the electrons that belong to the oxygen atom. And the unchecked electrons belong to the hydrogen atoms. And so the oxygen has more electrons, which tends to mean that it becomes more negative. That's why I have that big negative sign here. Therefore, the hydrogens become more positive. So that's what it means to be polar, is it's this unequal sharing, or a positive charge on one end, which is the hydrogen end, and a slightly negative charge on the other end. So some of the things that we did in class today, groups went through this POGLE, which is properties of water. So students worked in small groups to complete these 2 pages and answer these questions. We also did a little mini lab about how surface tension of water is affected by soap. So let's take a look at some more of the notes. When we talk about water molecule, it's the hydrogen bonds that form between molecules that help water retain some of these properties. So since it's polar, if you take a look here, these dashed lines are the hydrogen bonds. So this negative oxygen is going to be attracted to the positive hydrogen of another water molecule. When you're talking about things in a solution, you have chlorine, which are these green molecules that have a more negative charge, and sodium ions, which have a positive charge. So they're going to be attracted to the oxygens, and the positive hydrogens are going to be attracted to these negative chlorines. And that's how water is going to dissolve a substance. It's just these attractions. So water's structure, its hydrogen bond affinity, so its likeliness to form these hydrogen bonds, are going to help it do its job. So I've tried to simplify this for students by doing a few drawings, giving some examples. But basically, these properties of water help make it available to help life exist. So the structure, that polarity, ability to form hydrogen bonds, allows it to do these things. So first thing we talked about was water has a high heat capacity. The temperature to rise and fall more slowly than other liquids. So if we set up a little experiment, we put water in a beaker, alcohol, iron, set those all, started them all out at 20 degrees Celsius, heated them for 20 minutes. And these are just hypothetical numbers. We would see the water go to about 30 degrees, alcohol 40, iron 119. So what you should infer from this is that it takes water a lot longer to heat, to increase the temperature, than something like iron. So this is going to be a really good adaptation for a living organism, because it protects them from rapid temperature changes. Because remember, living organisms contain a lot of water, and I think we wrote down yesterday, so the average amount of water in living things is 70.9%. So we're made up of a lot of water. So it's going to help make that a slight adjustment rather than a rapid temperature change. I like to think of this one that goes with it. Water has a high heat of vaporization. So it takes a lot of energy to also evaporate water. So that's why you're not going to sweat all of the water out of your body and dehydrate immediately. Water takes a longer period of time to evaporate compared to other substances. So for example, you set a beaker of 40 milliliters of water and 40 milliliters of alcohol out in the sun for 10 hours. You come back, you're still going to have, these are all estimates, this isn't real data, 20 milliliters of water and maybe 5 milliliters of alcohol. Okay, so again, we're not going to walk outside on 100-degree days and all of a sudden the water that we're made of is not going to evaporate. That helps living things survive in extreme environments and different conditions. The third thing, water expands when frozen. Because of the hydrogen bonds, lakes and ponds are going to freeze from the top down, allows life to continue on the bottom. So if you draw a bunch of water molecules together, you're going to notice that they create this more expanded structure compared to liquid water. Again, so that makes them less dense, so they're going to float on water. Water is cohesive and adhesive. We'll take a look at that on the next, in the 2 pages here. But last one I want to mention is water is a universal solvent. It basically allows chemical reactions to take place. So this is what we talk about metabolism. All of our chemical reactions, water is a good place for substances to dissolve and reactions to take place. So make sure you read over all of the different places where you would find water in the human body and kind of what it does. So where you find it and what it does. There's many biochemical reactions that take place in our body. So it's kind of your overall metabolism, and water is necessary. But 2 of these reactions right here, cell respiration and photosynthesis, are really important chemical reactions to understand in this course. Notice water is found here as a product in cell respiration. And over here in photosynthesis, water is found as a reactant. So going back to the fourth example of water is cohesive and adhesive, that property. So water is cohesive. That means that water sticks to water. So a water molecule sticks to a water molecule. So that's another name for that is called surface tension. And there's a water strider, water on the legs sticks to the water, and water allows this to walk on water. A great adaptation allows the organism to escape maybe predators, also obtain food, different areas. Another example of a water property is adhesion, when water sticks to another substance. And I did a brief demonstration. Many of you have done this in a restaurant before. You put your finger on top of a straw and you lift up water to take a little sample out of your straw. This actually is what helps water come from the roots all the way up against gravity to get to the leaves. And why are the leaves going to need water? Well, it goes back to this equation. The leaves need the water to perform photosynthesis. So this is an inside picture of xylem and phloem, so the system of a tree. Very simplified explanation of how a tree obtains and uses water. You can also think if you have a graduated cylinder, and we've talked about how there's usually this curved line. It forms a meniscus, which is when it's this curvature. So the water is actually sticking to the sides of the glass of the graduated cylinder because of that adhesion. So it forms usually a curved liquid. Excuse me, water forms a curve. So that's kind of wrapping up the properties of water. Tomorrow we're going to talk about acids and bases. So to get ahead, read section 2.3, take some notes on acids and some notes on bases.